In this presentation, I want to introduce the concepts of globalization, neoliberalism, and agency to set the stage for further discussions of diversity and multiculturalism. Let's start with an example. In 1997, anthropologist Kenneth Guest began fieldwork in New York City's Chinatown. He wanted to study Chinese immigrant religious communities in New York, Christian, Buddhist, and Taoist. He was interested in the role religion played in the lives of new immigrants. Guest soon realized that he needed to learn why tens of thousands of immigrants from Fuzhou, China, were taking huge risks, some hiring human smugglers at great cost, to come and work in low-paying jobs in restaurants, garment factories, construction, and nail salons. To figure out why so many were leaving China, he traveled one summer to Fuzhou. Guest traveled to Fuzhou, China, capital of Fujian province, on China's southeast coast. From there, he took a bus to a small town at the end of the line. He then took a ferry across the river and a three-wheeled taxi to a rural fishing village at the foot of a mountain. He continued on foot until a motorcycle took him to his destination. Back in New York, Guest had met the master of a temple from Fuzhou. He was raising money from immigrants to rebuild the temple in China. He invited Guest to visit his hometown and participate in a temple festival. At the temple festival, Guest met hundreds of pilgrims from neighboring towns and villages. When one man asked, "What are you doing here?" Guest explained that he was an anthropologist from the United States. He had met their fellow villagers in New York and had come to study their village. People laughed and said, "Go back to New York. Most of our village is already there." Guest laughed as well at the irony of his having traveled to China when they all wanted to go to New York. But he and the villagers also marveled at the remarkable connection built across 10,000 miles between this little village and one of the most urban metropolises in the world. Over the years, Guest has made many trips back and forth to villages around Fuzhou. His research shows how globalization is transforming the world. Today, 70% of the people from the village he studied reside in the U.S., but they continue to build strong ties between New York and China. They travel back and forth. They build temples, roads, and schools back home. They transfer money by wire. They call, text, Skype, and post videos online. They send children back home to be raised by grandparents in the village. Parents in New York watch their children play in the village using webcams and the internet. Guest's transnational ethnography provides just one example of globalization, in this case motivated in part by cultural or religious goals. His study also illustrates agency, the capacity to act within or against the confines of culture in shifting global systems. Globalization refers to a series of processes that work to make modern nations and people increasingly interlinked and mutually dependent. It refers also to economic and political forces that operate within modern systems of communication and transportation to promote globalization. Globalization often allows larger economic and political systems to dominate local people. Kotak notes that in the age of globalization, new processes of association and separation are unfolding. Identity politics has to do with the political mobilization of non-national identities, racial, ethnic, gendered, sexual, occupational, and so on. In the age of globalization, new economic unions have been created. NAFTA, or the North American Free Trade Agreement, the WTRO, that is the World Trade Organization, and the European Union. Anthropologist Arjuna Padarai characterized globalization as follows: money, commodities, and persons unendingly chase each other around the world. A global culture of consumption is fueled by business, technology, the media, and capital. Neoliberalism Globalization has also both fueled and been shaped by neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is an economic ideology and policy orientation that favors free international trade and investment without tariffs or barriers, deregulation, and privatization. Not everybody loves globalization or neoliberalism. Anti-globalization is an economic ideology and policy orientation supported by unions, anti-capitalists, and environmentalists, among others, who oppose the power of large corporations and instead favor poverty reduction, the environment, human rights, and job creation. They also oppose the global organisms such as the World Trade Organization, or the WTO, the World Bank, and the IMF, or the International Monetary Fund. These are institutions that oversee economic globalization. According to Niederveen Petersi, contemporary accelerated globalization refers to a new distribution of power that comes together with information technology and flexible production and labor. Neoliberal globalization adds deregulation, global finance capital, and strong emphasis on market exchange. Not everyone agrees on what globalization is, when it started, whether it even exists, or whether it is leading to less diversity. But here are a few points of general agreement. Globalization is being shaped by technological change. Globalization involves the reconfiguration of states or countries. Globalization goes together with regionalization, that is, it operates within regions in particular ways, and globalization is uneven. Not everybody is impacted by globalization in the same way. So what is globalization? It's an objective, empirical process of increasing economic and political connectivity, a subjective process unfolding of consciousnesses. So what is globalization anyway? It's an objective, empirical process of increasing economic and political connectivity, and also a subjective process of collective and individual awareness of growing global interconnectedness. It's also a host of specific globalizing projects that seek to shape global conditions. It's not always clear which globalization is being talked about. Is it a general open-ended trend, or is it specific economic and political projects? Also, globalization is diverse. There are wide discrepancies in the basic understanding of globalization. Here are a few basic definitions as starting points. Contemporary globalization is characterized by the increasing interconnectedness and movement of finance, goods, people, and ideas across the planet. Kotak and Kozaitis refer to globalization as the accelerating interdependence of nations in a world system linked economically and through mass media and modern transportation systems. Is globalization even manageable? Inequalities of wealth and power are vast and growing. Some powerful countries show a greater proclivity to warfare than to multiculturalism and democratic reform. This leads to increasing volatility across the planet. Culture is both public and individual, and that's where agency and practice come into play. Agency refers to actions that individuals take both alone and in groups in forming and transforming cultural identities. Practice theory recognizes that individuals within a society or culture have diverse motives and intentions and different degrees of power and influence. Practice theory thus gets at how agents operate within the structures and power relations that shape them. People use their As agents, we use our culture actively and creatively rather than blindly following its dictates. Right? Now, when we talk about ideal culture, we mean what people say they should do, not what they... People use their culture actively and creatively rather than blindly following its dictates. That's what agents do. At the same time, we can talk about ideal culture and real culture. Ideal culture means what people say they should do, not what they say they do. And real culture refers to actual behavior as observed by the anthropologist. Agents are strategizing individual actors who interpret, use, make, or remake culture within structures of power. Agents may draw on popular culture to impose, symbolically or really, unequal power relations and oppression. They also appropriate external forces and shape them for their own purposes.